Something is controlling your decisions right now. You probably call it caution. Maybe you call it thinking things through. But it is stopping you from acting. It has been stopping you for years. The Stoics had a different name for it. They called it what it actually is. And 2,000 years ago, they found a way to break its control completely. By the end of this video, you will have their exact method. Not theory, not motivation, the practice itself. Think about the last time you held back. A decision, a conversation, a risk. You told yourself you needed more time, more preparation, more certainty. But certainty never arrived. So you waited. And while you waited, someone else moved. Someone less intelligent than you, less prepared than you, less capable than you. They moved because they had something you did not. Not confidence, a system for acting before confidence appeared.
Fear does not announce itself. It does not arrive as panic or trembling hands. It arrives quietly, dressed as logic. It says, not yet. It says, wait until you know more. It says, wait until you are ready. And because it sounds reasonable, you obey it every time. Most fear is not fear of pain. It is fear of humiliation. Fear of losing control publicly. Fear of watching your self-image collapse in front of other people. So you hesitate. And hesitation becomes identity.
Here is the question that runs through this entire video. What if you could experience the worst outcome first, before it ever happened? Not to torture yourself, to free yourself from surprise. That question is 2,000 years old. A man who began life as a slave built his entire philosophy around it. And the result was a mind that became almost impossible to break. Stay with this. His name was Epictetus, born into slavery inside the Roman Empire. No status, no rights, no power. One day, his master twisted his leg slowly, deliberately, testing how much pain the slave would tolerate. Epictetus remained calm. He looked directly at his master and said, "You are going to break it." The master continued. The leg snapped. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you? That is not a story about pain. It is a story about a man whose fear had already been confronted long before the moment arrived." How does an enslaved man become mentally free? Not through escape, not immediately. For years, he remained physically trapped. But he built something his master could not touch. A practice. Every morning, Epictetus rehearsed loss, humiliation, pain, failure. The Stoics called it Premeditatio Malorum, premeditation of evils. Not because they enjoyed suffering, because the mind fears what it refuses to look at directly. So they looked directly at it, again and again, until fear lost its ability to control them. Modern psychology eventually rediscovered this. Today they call it cognitive exposure therapy, preemptive emotional processing. It is now used worldwide to treat anxiety disorders. The Romans developed the same mechanism 2,000 years ago. But there was a difference. Modern therapy often uses it to reduce suffering. The Stoics used it for something harsher, to eliminate fear as a decision-making authority. Entirely different objective, entirely different result. Here is what fear actually does. It keeps the worst outcome hidden in your peripheral vision. You sense it, but you never examine it directly, so the mind enlarges it. The unknown always grows in darkness, and because the fear remains shapeless, you cannot prepare for it. You cannot fight what you refuse to define. The thing you avoid looking at is usually the thing controlling your life.
Eventually, Epictetus was freed. He opened a school in Rome, and something extraordinary happened. Senators came to study under him. Military leaders came to study under him. Even powerful Roman elites sat quietly, listening to a former slave speak. Why? Because he possessed something power could not manufacture: internal stability. His students recorded his teachings. They became the Enchiridion, one of the most influential philosophical texts ever written, created by a man who once owned nothing.
The Enchiridion begins with one distinction. Some things are within your control. Some things are not. Most people destroy themselves trying to control outcomes. The Stoics trained themselves to control decisions instead. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions. Those belong to you. Reputation does not. Public approval does not. Other people's reactions do not. Most outcomes do not. This is not abstract philosophy. It is operational clarity.
Now, apply this directly to your own life. You are avoiding a specific action. Maybe it is rejection, maybe public embarrassment, maybe financial risk, maybe failure in front of people whose opinions you value too much. But notice something carefully. The fear is trying to protect an outcome that may never have been under your control in the first place. And while you attempt to manage the uncontrollable, your entire life remains paused. Some people lose 10 years this way, not because they lacked ability, because they kept waiting for emotional certainty before acting.
Epictetus began here. Name the worst outcome precisely, not emotionally, precisely. Write it as a sentence. If I do this, this exact thing could happen. Now the fear has edges. Now it has shape. A named fear becomes measurable. A fear without a name controls everything. Then ask the next question. Can I survive this? Not succeed, not win, survive. And in most situations you face today, the answer is yes. Then ask, is this outcome actually within my control? If it is, prepare for it directly. If it is not, release the illusion of controlling it. This was the Stoic discipline of desire, to want only what belonged to your own actions.
Then comes the hardest part. Act before you feel ready. Because readiness is not an emotion. It is a decision made in the presence of uncertainty. Epictetus did not wait for fear to disappear. He assumed the worst could happen and acted anyway, because he trusted his ability to respond when reality arrived. That is the system, not destroying fear, removing fear's authority over your actions. Most people misunderstand this practice completely. They assume Stoicism is optimism. It is not. Premeditatio Malorum is controlled pessimism, used strategically. You imagine the worst outcome clearly. You prepare for it specifically. So when life moves against you, you are not shocked. And when the feared outcome never arrives, you move faster than everyone still paralyzed by uncertainty. Every outcome becomes familiar territory. Fear has nothing left to ambush you with.
Marcus Aurelius practiced this every morning before dawn. He ruled the largest empire on earth. Armies obeyed him. Senators feared him. Entire nations depended on his decisions. And still, he prepared himself for betrayal every single day. He wrote, "Today I will meet people who deceive me, people who use me, people who betray me." He was not becoming cynical. He was removing surprise. So when betrayal arrived, his emotions did not take command of his judgment.
Now return to the question from the beginning. What happens when you experience the worst outcome mentally before reality delivers it? The fear weakens. Not because you became fearless, because your nervous system already processed the event. The emotion completed its cycle before the moment arrived. So when reality finally comes, you arrive prepared instead of overwhelmed. That was the practice Epictetus built in chains, and it still works now. Apply this today. Think about the decision you keep postponing, the conversation, the risk, the action. Write the worst outcome in one sentence. Ask, can I survive this? Ask, is this within my control? Then move. Not because fear disappeared, because fear no longer makes the decision. You do.
There is something else the Stoics discovered about fear.
something more dangerous. Not your fear, about what fear does inside a person with authority. Because when the person making decisions is afraid, everyone beneath them suffers for it. The Stoics found a way to recognize this instantly, and a way to protect yourself from it completely. That is the next video. Watch the next video.